playoff race wide open. Who can blame them? We'll see if roster experimentation reaps rewards in our upcoming matches. As you see, Team Liquid and Golden Guardians making their way to the stage for our first bout of the day. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LCS Countdown, where for 30 minutes we rank the top laners in the league and learn what makes a poke comp so frustrating until the timer reaches 0 and we roll into Champion Select. Now, as we pull up the standings, I want to caution the viewer to not get too attached to what's going on outside of the top 3, because we've seen that on any given day, teams in last place can make a mad dash for playoff positioning. Gentlemen, what's your take here on the standings as they're starting to flesh out? We used to have 2 groups. Now there's a little bit more separation.
There's 2 groups and an awkward thing in the middle. I don't know what CLG's doing, but they got to pick a side quick.
Right. And at the team at the bottom, if they lose the day, it's very likely they're just kind of done. Their mental game will just be gone. The brains are off now.
Only 5 games left for each of our teams to make moves as we race towards playoffs. We'll see what kind of changes can take place with our games today. Game 1 has Team Liquid facing off against Golden Guardians. After that, it's FlyQuest opposite Echo Fox, with Crown facing Bjergsen in Optic versus TSM in that 3rd game of the day. Make sure you stay tuned after today's games, where Bang and Onda from 100 Thieves will join Freak and Azael on the LCS cooldown. Now, another week of games, and there's still plenty to learn, so Professor Kobe's opening up class again for another Team Comp 101.
Thanks, Dash, and thank you all for making it to first period on time. We've got an early class for you today. In previous lessons, we have gone into some of the basics of team compositions. Today, I want to look into one of the slightly more rare strategies, and it is a poke composition. Now, there is a reason that this is a little bit more rare. They're fairly hard to pull off. They're a little bit fragile. Specifically, we are going to be looking at TSM's poke composition that they broke out in their game against Cloud9. Now, in some of the other compositions as well that we have examined, some of the pieces can be traded out, but in poke compositions, every single one is extremely important. Now, they've got Nico, Zoe, and Varus, all long-range damage skill shots that you can fire away. Also, all long-range snares that you can hit. And then Gragas and Tahm Kench play very key roles as disengage. Gragas ultimate can knock people back. Devour for Tahm Kench can save any other member of the poke composition that has been caught. Let's bring up some keys to remember if you want to execute a poke composition at home, because they are, again, fairly hard to execute. Number 1, you need to establish some vision control. Get warding around you, because everybody, when they see your poke composition, they're going to draft hard engage. They're going to come at you from all angles. They're going to try and flank you and get these stuns off and kill your fragile members. So vision is extremely important. You can see that coming. Number 2, with a composition based on hitting skill shots, you're going to need to hit those skill shots. If your long-range damage abilities don't land, then you're not going to get anywhere with this type of team. And number 3, track the defensive abilities of your allies, the Gragas and Tahm Kench that we mentioned, and pay attention to their positioning so that you can save each other and help each other out. A poke composition is only as strong as its weakest link. Let's take a look at a couple of clips where TSM actually performed really well with their poke composition and got ahead, and then also another one where they messed up and they ended up actually losing the game even with a very big lead. And that's something that you do need to remember with these teams. They're fairly fragile. So you see they cleared out the wards in the river first. Bjergsen even very safely checking the brush, throwing out the paddle star to make sure nobody's in there. And then they focus on the vision. Control ward goes down. As you can see, the map from C9's point of view goes completely dark. They have no vision of Sven or Bjergsen. Both of these guys, again, with the long-range skill shots. Bubble's going to come out as we roll the rest of this clip here. Zoe hits it. Sneak was only there for a second, but one skill shot lands. Then Sven actually got his ultimate and his Q off right there. Finishes up the kill fairly easily, and you can see they even poke Zazel all the way out. So then, after you have killed someone, you've poked them out, they're low health, then you go over to the Baron, as you see, they turn their eyes towards the objective. That gets TSM a huge lead. However, no matter how big your lead is with a poke composition, you're always fragile. Let's take a look at another clip here where it all comes crashing down. 2 key members that we pointed out, poke composition, Broken Blade, and Bjergsen. These are the damage dealers, the ones with the snares. They're very far away, as you can see on the minimap, from their defensive partners, the Tahm Kench and the Gragas. So when Bjergsen, with no flash, uses his R ultimate, which also roots him right there at the beginning bubble, you can see, Cloud9 make a very good call. They jump on Bjergsen. They know their only chance to win is to rush right at this poke composition and attack them while they're split. Let's roll the rest of the clip here, and you can see them do it. Svenskeren even Q and flashes over to make sure that they can take down Bjergsen here, because you only get one chance. If you fail on the engage, then you're going to collapse. But because they were so spread out and C9 made the attack on the split members, this forces the rest of the TSM into a small corridor. The jungle walls are something that you also have to pay attention to with this composition. There's nowhere for you to run at this point. You can see this small corridor is a perfect avenue for Sneaky to follow up. He flashes with the Cassiopeia. So let's roll the clip here, and we'll see the rest of the devastation that follows. Since the fight started out when they're so split, none of these defensive abilities were of any use to them. They had to chase them down. So you're always going to need to remember, once again, stay safe with a poke composition. Now we are going to be taking a break, but when we return, Riv investigates the mysterious forces influencing North American League of Legends and wonders if there's something else at play. So don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to the LCS Countdown, where Game 1 is about 20 minutes away. Going into this week, Riv launched a full-blown investigation to find out more about the League Pro scene, and specifically why North America can be so strange.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another region. A region of 200 IQs. A region for fun. You're moving into a land of fog and darkness, throws and cheese. You've just crossed over into
An ally has been slain.
the Fiesta Zone.
In tonight's tale, a typical LCS early game takes center stage. Imagine, if you will, a team starts strong and racks up first blood, a gold lead, and look to be squarely in the driver's seat. Now imagine that team has only as good a chance at winning as flipping heads with your average coin. What dimensional vortex causes this bizarre twist in fate? What rational explanation can be found in the irrational? In this distorted reality, a team can find their strong start cut short, their momentum halted, then reversed, as victory is snatched from their grasp. While the mind searches for an explanation, the only answer lies in the shadowy corner of a place called the Fiesta Zone.
Thank you, Riv, for that deep dive into the Fiesta Zone. But what in reality can we make sense of Riv's findings?
I mean, this is a hilarious bit, but the stats are not funny at all to me. We have a 56.9% win rate with a gold lead at 15 minutes. The global average is 81%. We're almost 25% worse than the global average. And if you get first blood in North America, it's actually a bad idea. We only win 44.6% of our games compared to global average 62.4%. As well as the fact that on average we're 3 minutes slower than
You're
the
better
global.
off winting.
Yeah, you're better off falling behind almost in North America. It's funny, but also so sad to watch. I can't believe we're this bad.
On the bright side, there's no Worlds coming up soon, right? It's just MSI, and their top-rated team at least does well.
We've got time.
Yeah.
We've got time to rectify
I'm pretty
this.
sure we were better.
I can't believe
way
it was
back in the
day we were that
Back
bad.
in the day, I'm pretty sure we were better.
I know for a fact that you guys were better with a goal lead at 15, averaging somewhere around 70% as compared to the 81% of global average, but the even more abysmal 56 of the current NALCS. With first bloods as well,
But we're good
up
players.
over around 60
least
to
we were.
70% win rates. So even 2014 summer, C9 Dignitas understood the game a little bit better, or whatever that
as analysts,
means.
they were players. It was a better time.
I mean, why do we think this is? What contributes to a league struggling so much with ending games when they have advantage?
So I think it's because so many teams are just brand new. You've got new players meshing together, new coaching staff, all coming in at once, and the spring split nonetheless. And so you're always having to relearn the game. learn the language, learn how to communicate, learn to live in a new place with new people. So it's just going to be a long process every time. And I don't think the other regions have had that big of a surge of just new teams. And the ones at the top are really the most established ones when it comes to having an infrastructure and old players.
I think I would disagree with that pretty heavily. I would argue that a large portion of the issues this split has been the meta changes, and with a lot of the issues with the ranked solo queue, the preseason, all the issues that we've had this year and this split specifically has now applied back to when we played. And we've had those issues of players being imported since 2014 and having to acclimate to the culture changes, but we've had a lot of issues with a ton of different meta changes this split along top of all the issues of ranked.
Well, I'm curious to see if the teams can turn this around. If anything, it is time for us to leave the Fiesta zone. I'm sure we'll be right back in it come game 2 or 3. But we're heading towards top lane Tuesday. We're heading to top lane Tuesday on Sunday because passing up a good alliteration is honestly a crime. And before we take a look at how you ranked our top laners, I want to hear from you guys about what you were thinking or taking into consideration when looking at these guys.
Much the same way we were just talking about NA as a whole, I feel like a top lane is like almost a little parable of it because when you look at the top laners, it feels like such a strange position. We talked about mid lane being hard to rank because everyone was kind of doing their own thing. In top lane, no one really stands out. Like, it's such a weird position where I don't feel like you're rating players almost more off how few mistakes they make versus how many games they're winning for me.
Yeah. My criteria was what role do they play within their team, what is expected of them in the team, and how well do they do it. So a lot of times the role is really just don't feed. Too hard for a lot of players. Too hard, though, so we might have to lower the bar.
All right, well, let's take a look at the list then. See where you guys threw all of these dudes. We got Licorice and Impact occupying the top 2 spots for all 3 of you. So there's some alignment there. And then things get real funky for the rest of the list. But let's first talk about Licorice and why it is that he is unanimously the best top laner in the LCS.
I mean, in a league where we're talking about everyone being so volatile in the top lane and some people losing games nonstop, it feels like Licorice is the one stud who not only doesn't lose his team games, but also carries them. And he is always able to play different things, playing the Poppy in some games, as well as the Jace himself. So he has been very versatile and consistent this split.
Very much so.
He's one of the top laners that you would question mark ping the least. He does some questionable plays at times. But you would, like yesterday, his Poppy was a bit questionable, but I probably wouldn't question mark ping him as much as other top laners.
Sure.
All right, following Licorice, we have Impact, who also sits unanimously there. Mark, hit me with an explanation on this one real quick.
I think much the same way we're talking about limiting mistakes, he's one of the best at that, but he isn't devoid of them either, which is why it's so hard to talk about top laners, because it feels like such a gap from Licorice to everyone else. Because Impact, if you put someone else on Team Liquid, he gets carried a lot of those games. He has those Jace games where he falls massively behind, but they win anyways. His Yorick game was pretty bad. In some of his tank games, he's not getting huge leads, but at the same time, he almost never costs his team the game.
All right, well, those ones are agreed upon. This next one I find very interesting. We've got Viper rated all the way from 3rd over on Crumbs' list to 2nd to last on high.
I feel like Crumbs needs to defend his 3rd
to 9th. Yeah,
I don't know if he's been watching the LCS or not. He came over from Overwatch.
I'm going to defend this, okay?
All right.
This entire thing could be flipped. It was that's a proof.
Oh, okay, so 3%
yeah, no,
for
really,
you are,
these guys don't have such a wide gap between themselves in the role that they fit for the team. So while Viper may not be carrying, he's not necessarily hinting games away for FlyQuest. So I value that quite a bit when you're already counting on Wild Turtle to be doing a good job.
All right, so why do you have him sitting down in 9th?
Right, so I did some research into this, and he is very low on a large portion of the different stats. He has the 2nd lowest KDA, he has the 3rd lowest KP, and his landing stats are not that great either. He's the 2nd lowest in the GD at 10, and the 3rd lowest at CD at 10 as well.
How often does
so
he
his landing
play?
stats aren't that great, and his team fighting stats aren't that great either, because he doesn't have a high damage percentage or a high damage per minute. And his warding, there's not a single stat that puts him in the top 3, basically. And I'm not saying that he's a terrible player or anything like that, but he's not carrying games for his team. He might not necessarily be throwing them either, but that bar isn't that high considering the other players that aren't also throwing games have higher stats than him too.
I'm not going to refute that. That sounds all solid and whatnot, but what about everybody else being above him, though? Because then you would have to make an argument for everybody else being superior in a similar way.
Right, perfect. I got more stats from the other people.
All right, let's hear him. I'm going to come to you in a second because you split the difference on Viper, but I do want to give Hai a chance to respond here.
Right, well, Darshan and Huni, people always have given them flack for being bad players or not doing that well. But if you take a look at their stats, they're not poor in the stats. They're average for a lot of them, Huni is kind of bad for like KDA and stuff like that. But if you look at his damage percentage and his damage per minute, he's above everyone by a large portion of like a large amount. So he might throw some games at times, but he's hard carrying the early game for the team as well. So if that team can transition his early game leads into wins, he might be able to like look better on the stats, right? Because he's not necessarily throwing it every single time.
My problem with some of these stats is that you end up with these like high, great games like Darshan's Jack team, and then you get his Ornn game where he literally loses you the game. And it averages out to like, hey, not that bad. And Viper maybe is less consistent or more consistent and doesn't look as impressive. But some of the other guys like literally lose their team the game with their decision making. And that's happened with Darshan, that's happened with Broken Blade, where they lose 2v2 topsides all the time. Like so much of this list is so volatile for that reason.
Right. So Viper, in a sense, can be consistently below average, but at least with that consistency, the
you can let Pole Belter and Turtle play.
Right. You can. The rest of the map can play expecting that. Whereas those highs and lows, sure, sometimes you look great, but if you're going to sack me 2 or 3 games a split, it may not be worth it.
Dokla did it yesterday, right? He doesn't have to feed a whole lot to let his team be able to carry. He only went 2 deaths on the Yorick. Okay, I know I'm going to get camped. I'm just going to accept it. I don't need to be playmaking. And so a lot of these top laners, I feel like, are not working in that mindset where you just have to say, it's not going to be my game. I'm not going to shine today. It's going to be my carries. I'm just going to sit back and let it happen.
Let's talk about our other rookie here in the LCS, this split in the top lane, Broken Blade. Whereas you guys are a little all over the place when it comes to Viper, slightly more aligned here, 6th, 7th.
And 6th as well, right?
Yeah.
For me, so I think he's been one of the more consistent players. It's just that he has like great split pushing mentality, but his laning phase and his 2v2s with the Cadian leave a lot to be desired for me. The number of times that they have gone topside early on to try and win a fight and lose it, and then he has to play from a deficit of being 0-2-0, which he plays well from there on, is like, it's at least 5 times this split. And it's a little too much for me to put him into the top half of the league, and I feel like a number of players have been better than him for me.
Right, and watching him from a pro player perspective, it seems like he makes a lot of calls to bring his jungler to his lane to take these 2v2 fights where they don't win those 2v2 fights. So that's why you see all these deaths. And he's consistently playing like a solo queue player. You can see his stat lines of being 0-6-0 or whatever. Yeah. And sometimes you have those games. I've had those games. But at the end of the day, you still need to learn how to play as a team. And he's just consistently just AFK the entire game, trying to end the game through the Nexus, which is a fine strategy, I guess. But he want to get to that point.
Definitely dock him a few extra points for asking for resources and attention and not necessarily capitalizing on that.
It's a two-way street, though, because if you're the jungler, you have the right to say, no, I'm not going to go. I'm going to do my thing. I know I can count on other people. We've lost a lot of 2v2s, so it's not like he's clicking Acadian's mouse for him saying, all right, you got to go up here.
But being that jungler, it feels so bad,
how badly the ganks have gone.
The last top laner I want to talk about is Someday. This is a guy who in his first split or 2 in the LCS entirely impressed people across the board and was in the conversation for top 1, 2, 3. And now we have him anywhere from 3 to 5 on the list, so still in that upper echelon, but he's not, running away with a title or anything.
I don't think there's any doubt that he's still a good player, and you can see him getting these monstrous leads in a fair amount of his games, but it's a complete inability to translate that to actual victories and how much you put on him and maybe communication issues around him and the rest of his team, which is one of the last place teams in the league. It's hard to say, and I think he's kind of suffering from a result of his team, but he also hasn't looked phenomenal either. He's left some to be desired.
I mean, it's really hard when you can't have proper synergy with your jungler to execute on your advantage, especially if you have a language barrier as well. I'm sure there's complex plays that you would want to communicate that then you have to go through another player to translate. Can you tell my jungler this? And by the time the play happens, you've already lost the window of opportunity.
Right. He still gets leads, so that's why he's up there top, right?
It's an interesting look at this tier list as compared to last week's mid lane, where things felt at least a little bit more aligned or easier to make sense of. But we'll be tracking these top laners throughout the day. On the other side of the commercial break, Crumbs gets his first crack at Jatt stats, and we look at predictions for the day. All that's coming up after this. Welcome back to the LCS Countdown, where I've learned I have no say in what happens in this show, as a robot seems to have more autonomy than me. So, where are you, Jatt Stats Robot? Huh? Oh, there he is.
Got 5.5 minutes, buddy.
Yeah, seriously, let's get cracking. Oh, they make us listen to the song.
Oh, it's the old song.
I like the song.
I've crunched the numbers and done the math. It's Jatt Stats. And fun fact.
A little less
well done.
emotion in
I like
it.
that.
Yeah.
I like that. It's on
Week
beat.
7. Hello Dash. Hi, Mark.
and Crumbs.
Hi, hello, hello.
Oh,
For your benefit, Crumbs, let's do a quick recap on how this works.
Oh.
I am a kind robot and this is the #1 robot-operated game show on the planet.
Not much
Probably.
competition.
Who is to say?
I wouldn't be one to say I don't
Right.
watch robot
Yeah.
shows.
This week we are looking at top laners, because theming. My first question today is a very simple one. There have been 2 pentakills by top laners in the LCS all-time, both of them by the same player. Who is this player?
In the LCS. So we're not counting balls' pentakill on Darius at Worlds.
I think Darshan, he's been around for quite a while.
I was
Darshan
gonna say,
has been
I think
around for a
Darshan
bit.
has one.
Then let's go with
Then
him.
he would have 2 if he said
But
there's
I'm
only
just
2.
wondering if the wording is that precise. Like top laners in
Can it
the
be
LCS?
Hunter?
Because it doesn't say the pentakills are in the LCS. It says the
Wait,
top-
my money's on Hunter.
LCS.
I'm
I'll
gonna
go
bet
with
Hunter.
Darshan, I like the
I like
Darshan
Darshan.
call because it's not.
Wait a minute, it might trick us. Zion Spartan.
Oh!
The robot would
You
be.
thought you had us! Jatt stats.
I'm gonna say Darshan still.
Zion Spartan.
Zion Spartan.
Hunter?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Crumbs on this one.
The correct answer is
Huni.
World's finalist
Oh, we're
Huni.
dumb.
One split, really?
Wow.
Well, not he had them both in the same
Immortals.
split.
On the Immortals, yeah, on the Immortals.
Because I was just thinking teams that won a lot, and I didn't think it was Darshan. It wasn't
That's
balls
impressive.
either. So then it had been TS.
Wow, of all the top winners,
Question 2. Top lane is considered an island. I don't understand why, since having a river nearby does not qualify you as an island. Regardless of this misclassification, what top laner has the most isolated deaths per game in the LCS all-time?
Huni.
Already?
Huni.
Kiwi Kid.
Oh, actually, well,
Well, he didn't play enough.
They may not have been isolated. He was death
Hasn't
leader, but
most.
isolated deaths meaning his team wasn't around him when he died.
And I feel like he didn't play enough. Like that
Yeah,
probably
like
been-
Kiwi had death records.
Dyrus?
For
Yo, let's
sure.
be real. Kiwi had trouble.
Dyrus? Whoa.
My money's on
I
Dyrus.
feel like Huni has had so many isolated
He's
deaths.
had so many.
So many.
Wait, Rain over him are like the best friends when they play together. They're
but
always next to each
he
other.
still had so many.
All right. Dyrus has been playing for
Dyrus.
so long, though.
Dyrus is a
Hunter
good call.
Hunter also pushes up a lot of line.
I'm gonna go Huni.
The correct answer is Optic Docklet.
What?
Oh, it's deaths per game.
Oh, wait, what?
ISO deaths per game, not all-time highest.
Oh, I thought it was absolute value.
Can we bring the...
That was trickily worded.
like
I don't
the
even think that was correctly worded.
I don't think it was worded correctly.
Yeah,
but maybe
come on,
we're dumb.
robot.
Question.
Let's
Top
blame the
lane in
robot.
the LCS has gone through many different metas. Some split pushers, some tanks, but there's one who's always there when you need it, dashing into battles to make sure teams stand united. Which champion has been played in the top lane the most in LCS history?
Isn't that just Shen?
Shen.
with
Malcolm,
the different
Shen.
names?
Shen. He
Shen.
made jokes about
Yeah,
his
yeah, they
abilities.
Is
punted
that a
up.
bait though?
Shen.
Is that a bait? Probably.
Shen.
I'll take the bait.
Shen.
I'll take the bait,
Shen.
Shen.
The correct answer is Maokai at 294 picks.
Come on!
I told you you made it.
No, I hate
Why
you
is it
all.
at the tree?
I gotta trust my
Maokai
gut more
hasn't
often.
been meta in like 2 splits. That's why it's out of my mind.
Yeah, but you remember when
It was every game.
Feels like every game.
Crumbs, I'm very proud of you. You clearly did your best and I think you joined on the best episode yet. If only
proud
for
of
the
you.
singing.
Getting
Coming
everything.
soon
You
we
got
have
literally
game 1
every
Team
single one
Liquid
wrong.
versus
100%
Golden Guardians.
daily rate.
Enjoy my dear friends.
Thank you very much, Jatt,
Please leave.
for those poorly worded questions.
Thank you.
Making us look like fools. Well, let's look where you guys placed your bets for our games today. We got a minute left to go to game 1. All 3 of you said that it would be Team Liquid. A line across the next 3 games, FlyQuest, TSM, Cloud9. Looks like a lopsided day until we get to that 5th game of the day, and we have a split desk once again. Clutch versus CLG. Who do I want to make talk about it? I want to make Crumbs talk about it because he went for CLG.
Well, I feel great. We got stats by our side, so
That's
that
true.
means that it's already carrying a lot of weight.
Stats
But
has a better
CL
prediction rate than these 2 guys.
There
do,
we go. So
Hey,
that aligns.
hey,
But
cheating.
CLG, okay, they did not look that great yesterday with the subs. Not gonna lie, that was not.
They almost won.
They
They're
almost
on the
won, right?
Nexus.
So Power of Evil had a right idea, but Clutch Gaming just rolled over and died, right? They did even less. So when you weigh those together, you gotta go with CLG saying you're gonna do a little bit more.
Just like top lane, it's the battle of who can make less mistakes, right? So there it is. That's your reasoning for Game 5. This first game of the day pits our top team, though, against the Golden Guardians, who are looking to make that push for playoffs. So with it, we're going to toss it out to the Battle Arena for the call.
Thank you very much, Dash. I am Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, joined once again by Sam, Kobe, Hartman, Kensler, and we are ready to kick things off here on day number 2 with Liquid versus the Golden Guardians. Hell yeah! We lost an hour today, but